My father was unfortunately drinking a lot, an alcoholic, and my mother just was so scared and frightened. And growing up in that environment impacts a child. Well, it impacted me in a sense that it shut me down. I felt very scared, frightened. I honestly, it was hard for me to talk and to express myself till I was about 5 years old. And on top of that, my mother didn't know what was going on with me. So I felt like she shamed me, and I'm sure she didn't do it on purpose, but that's how it felt. Like, what's wrong with you? You're so strange. Why are you so shy? But I know that the impact of the environment and the behavior that my father had when he
Mm.
was drinking impacted me with fear and terror, because there was a lot of rage and in him when he was under the influence. So that impacts a child and it leaves an imprint.
I never give up. I never give up.
Hi guys, welcome back to Neff Inspiration, a show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. Today I've got Leanna Lapidus with me. Leanna and I share a passion with regards to bringing out to light the power and often the destructive power of our childhood experiences, which lay so far back in our own history, yet they, in their own right, create ripple effects, very much like the butterfly effect, that somewhere a butterfly swings its wings in Russia and in the United States, major climate change is happening. It's the same when it comes to our behaviors in adulthood that are often so influenced by what we have experienced in our childhood and the way we try to protect ourselves in those early innocuous years. Leanna, welcome to my show.
Thank you so much. It's truly an honor to be
Mm,
here and to
mm,
meet you, and to have an opportunity to share and to be heard about so many important things
mm,
we as human beings go through.
mm.
And just love the opportunity to always share what has worked for me and what works for a lot of my clients. And that just gives me an excitement because I can't hold it to myself.
And I love that, isn't it?
We need to
And that
give that.
absolutely the is Frankel, you're me, Victor. We are all thinking the same thing or feeling the same thing. We have gone through so much rubbish, so much negativity, so much darkness. There must be a meaning there. There must be a sense. There must be a purpose. And by us nowadays having open and meaningful discussions and putting the spotlight on the flow and effects of childhood trauma, that is really how we can make sense of our own tragedies and move forward. And that is so powerful. So thank you so much for coming onto my show. And you certainly have not just read a book about that, you certainly have experienced it. You are an immigrant, you have come from the beautiful Kyiv. Tell us a little bit about your early years, because these are the years that we are talking about here that formed you and probably brought out some coping mechanisms that saved you then, but maybe were not so advantageous later on.
Yeah. Grew up in Kyiv, and what I remember how it impacted me was we lived in a 3-bedroom apartment, shared we shared a room with my entire family. So
Mm,
basically 3 other families lived in one 3-bedroom apartment. And so grew up in one room with my parents. My father was unfortunately in a lot, an alcoholic, and mother just so scared and frightened. And up in that environment impacts a child. Well, it impacted me in a sense that shut me down. It felt very scared, frightened.
mm,
I honestly, it was hard for me to talk and to express myself till I was about 5 years old. And on top of that, mother didn't know what was going on with me. So felt like she shamed me, and I'm sure she didn't do it on purpose, but that's how it felt. Like, what's wrong with you? You're so strange. Why are you so shy? I know that
mm,
the impact of environment and the behavior that my father had when he
mm,
was drinking, me with fear and terror because there was a lot of rage and him when he was under the influence. So that impacts a child and it leaves an imprint.
mm,
And that's what happened to me. And for a very long time, I felt very shut down. And every time I would speak, I felt like a knot in my throat, like
mm,
scared. Then moving to the United States, what a big transition, to school, to grade in the United States. And without a word of English, it was kind of like, said, okay, just go. And the upbringing was like, figure it out, don't cry, be strong.
yeah.
Like really heard your feelings or your emotions. That wasn't even like allowed, It's just school, do your thing. And so that like just it big trauma for me. In many ways, it left me feeling like I'm in this world, nobody understands me, I'm not wanted, I'm not lovable, I'm not pretty, I am not smart,
Mm,
just low self-worth. And later on in life, when I, started myself, I mean, I'm a little bit about my childhood, but, I things where it stemmed from.
mm,
Even the fact that my parents were a bit older and they weren't planning to have a child. So this was their second marriage for both of them. They already had older children. They were already had
mm,
children of their own. So being an unwanted pregnancy, not planned, basically, having the parents are going through a lot of stress, money issues,
mm,
a lot of fear in how they're going to raise a
mm,
child and what they're going to do. That already impacted me in the womb. And so coming to life, coming was um, already felt, I don't here, I'm different, I'm not wanted.
mm,
So that left this belief system inside of me for a very, very long time. And then, if you attract what's familiar, later on,
mm.
you know,
Yeah.
connected, attracted these different people in my life and my who I'm out of fear because my mother then was dying of cancer when I was 19 years old. So it's continuation. It was just always just and a big struggle.
Mm,
So, but it also, taught me, well, it prepared me for the work that I do today. Having gone through all of that, I mean, there are pieces in between, and how the trauma escalated and
mm,
just left me feel, like a
mm,
sense of not belonging, like me,
mm,
I just don't belong here. And feeling was pretty loud. The thoughts that come with are very dark,
mm,
and that a lot of anger
mm,
from wanting to be a part of the world and
mm,
kindness wasn't even a part of
mm,
the so going own
mm,
experience with trauma and growing up the way I did. And you know what? I'm not blaming my parents. I love parents. They best with what they had. And, yes, I've done better. Look, my father's war, like, nervous system, like how do you know what's right and wrong? He served war, he didn't go to school,
mm,
you know, without a father, so look at that. But I don't blame my parents anymore. I used to through a lot of healing work.
mm,
Um, I've, a lot of forgiveness work, done a lot of
mm,
acceptance.
mm,
And my parents. And honestly, I've learned to be grateful for the experiences because it then allowed me to transform into the person that I am and to do the work that I get to do, that I'm called to do, and on a very deep level, understand their emotions, understand their thoughts, understand their belief system, and be able to help them. So I feel like it was a plan from the beginning for me.
You've got a very philosophical stance there, but that philosophical stance comes as a fruit from a lot of emotional healing work. I can add to that, and I commend you on that. And you obviously have got, I mean, Childhood Kaleidoscope is a whole range of things, starting from tiny things to the most brutal rape, violence scenarios on the other side. And you're sort of, oh, well, in dark gray, I would say. And some people might say, oh, no, no, my just was no, nothing like that. In reality, there must be, in my guesstimate, I would say there are at least 50%, half of people, certainly in the Western world, who are affected by such coping mechanisms, such as fear avoidance, such as trauma response is concerned. What are the figures that you quote? How many people do you think are truly affected by their childhood in a way that is now stopping them living their life to the fullest?
I believe that everybody's experienced some sort of trauma. And, I've been a trauma therapist for
Yeah,
many years. There when clients would say, well, my childhood was perfect.
exactly.
And okay, that's no. Um, People therapy because there's something wrong that they want to heal thing, and just say like, oh, something that happened terrible to you
Yeah.
that you doubt the way you turned and what you're doing right now. We trauma doesn't be abuse, physical, emotional abuse. It doesn't have to be abuse. It's how the child interprets that situation and creates an
Mm,
identity for what was
mm,
happening
mm.
to them at that moment. And, if actually knew that they affected the child at that time by saying one word,
I know. I know.
like, you bring
I know.
100%, you bring an A plus, and well, okay, good. You keep getting A pluses now,
Mm,
like never being happy. And then what happens to the child, in
ah,
that case? They become perfectionists. They're too hard on themselves and they're never anything is good enough for them. So they're constantly in this race, to get somewhere. But I'm like, where are you want to end up? Like, where are you going? Like, where are you rushing to? Like, where are you traveling to?
nice.
And how you know, so there's no direct physical abuse, sexual abuse, or that
Mm,
kind of abuse,
mm,
where people think, oh, that's
mm,
the trauma. But
mm.
it's verbal abuse. It could be a child watching their parents be very
Absolutely.
successful.
Oh,
Yeah, be very and then have up to being that success. And that can also create trauma. It's the trauma hidden,
mm,
but it all in my
mm,
with my experience, it's from the child sides, what they like their identity in that moment when
mm,
that situation happened, you know. So an identity of who they are when they're experiencing watching their parents succeed, you know what I mean? And they can't do it.
that's beautiful.
So
I've that aspect of kind of peer, a very early stage. actually makes perfect sense now that I'm thinking about it. Thank you for drawing my attention to that. Because normally, when we look, I love how you laid out abuse versus non-abuse. When we look at adverse childhood experiences, there is so much more there. Of course, there are the extreme dark versions of childhood abuse, but then there's also the financial insecurity, the fear within the household, a divorce happening within, even if it is an amicable divorce, there's the loss, grief are permeating through that. And often enough, we as children lay down A, beliefs, B, later on, these beliefs influence our actions that we take. But often we also restructure these beliefs into something positive, into something, I don't know, we compartmentalize. I always say that when you're used to living in a burning house, then you raise your hands to the flames and say, oh, that's nice and warm. You don't say that the house is on flames and that it is an absolute mess in which you are living. It is, I love also therefore the way how broad you identify trauma. And whilst the word trauma might be overutilized today, ultimately, when we look at how we are behaving, the amount of stress that we all appear to be under, the way that we use food to treat emotions, etc. It's so many arguments where actually we have to say, hang on, there is something seriously wrong in the vast majority of us. Therefore, I love you widening the scope so much and just offering the help and being out there. Now, you to a lot of things. I love you for it. You said that, you things that were not so great. There was an anger there. For sure, there would have been at some stage, you would have been rebellious. How did that rebel look like when you were younger?
Yeah. It was I had a lot of anger and I isolated, I leave good things for myself.
Mm,
I didn't, get along with people and I don't know how to explain it. I just isolated
mm,
and there's a shame that
mm.
we experience when we grow up in a dysfunctional home with addiction, especially.
Yeah.
There's a shame because it's not something you want to go talk about. So it's very isolating.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I went out with my um angry and
Mm.
did said don't go anywhere, anyways, just kind of like very disrespectful, things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
I didn't really I never got into drugs or
Okay.
drinking.
Was about
I
to
just
ask because I mean, that
yeah,
is the
I
typical
know.
the where do
Yeah,
you on the one hand you've got
yeah.
the alcoholic role models in your life, on the other hand you want to escape. So how did you
Yeah.
escape?
Yeah, like I said, I was a worrier. I
Yeah.
worried a lot. I don't know, like worried a
Fear.
lot
So fear, yes.
here.
Fear avoidance or fear. What did you do with that fear?
I just, didn't do much.
Yeah.
I gravitated toward safety, but the safety that I was gravitating toward was very unhealthy. I just out in a lot of worry and anger, very like
Mm,
internal suffering, remember, outwardly something in that sense. But
mm.
I made a lot of bad mistakes, and I think I just very angry is enough acting out,
Oh,
you
please.
know.
This is a pissing contest. Okay. This is
Like I think that's good enough because that's very damaging, you know. It creates a cycle of so much pain. You're hurting somebody
Mm,
and then you go through the cycle just like an addict does. They the cycle of guilt, shame, regret, and then they come back and do it again.
mm,
So, to me, for a long time, because I grew up with addiction in my family, my
mm,
father, I, married to substance abuse, big problem, in fact, very big problem. I started to, um, I, was angry. I forgot where we're going with this.
You was how patterns repeat themselves because we are attracted, or there is a certain sense of security in knowing how a pattern plays out. And that's all subconsciously. And obviously you some choose partners that are similar to how they
Right,
grew up. And that's the challenge for you.
right, right.
How did you recognize that such patterns were actually playing out in real life with you? So many of us don't realize it and don't get the opportunity to heal from it, but they are going into retirement and think finally, oh my God, it's the third divorce that I'm going through. I've got no money left. I'm still as angry as I was as an 18-year-old teenager. And, no yet change is very much possible. It's guaranteed if you actually address the underlying issue. But for that, there needs to be an awareness there that okay, something seriously wrong. Was there one catalyst there? Was there one, or was there a series of events that occurred that guided you towards actually enough is enough?
Yes, yes. It's dark, dark things happening all over and over and over again. I mean, I
Mm,
just couldn't, it was just, it just haunted me. And that made me feel just so angry and hopeless, and the time where I had an opportunity where I call it rock bottom. And where I was so desperate, my husband was incarcerated. I was with my two children at age 28, having to them. I didn't have my mother already passed. I
wow.
was, alone. At the time, there was nobody around, like all my disappeared. Like nobody wants to be
Mm,
around when things really bad. And I had, you know, I would call it bottom, like the addiction. This is where I was going before. Negative thinking and my depression and my anger and my worry was my addiction.
ooh, nice one. Nice.
When I realized that, I like stirring in and living in it over and over and
Mm,
over again.
mm,
And I
mm.
realized, like, wow, I thought of this and it happened. Like, I thought something negative. I always kind of felt I was going to die, and it happened. I'm like, am I powerful? I'm not that powerful. But then I was reading a lot about law of attraction, and it
Mm,
was that time,
mm,
when attraction was popular. I said, okay, how does it work? Okay, I'm attracting negative things because I'm thinking so negatively. And that was a wake-up call for me.
mm,
So I started working on myself. I basically said, I do something different.
mm,
I was I to God, and I never believed in God before. And I just cried out to God and I said,
mm,
God, either take me
mm,
or show me the way.
mm,
And things started to happen. Things
mm,
started to change. People into my life and ideas and
mm,
learning experiences and affirmations. I started
mm,
learning about affirmations. I
mm,
started writing. I started journaling. I was working out. I started to understand that I need to change the way I am thinking about things.
yeah,
And so that was the turning point, but that's just the beginning
yeah,
because then I'm still left with all emotions like, angry, I'm still feeling like nobody wants me.
mm,
I'm still feeling I'm not all these things, so I had to do the work. And my first work was taking responsibility for,
yeah,
my not that they did it to me, but you know what? This is what I am. And so I can choose now, I can make a decision. Do I want to
mm,
continue being the way that I am, or do I want to change? And so it was choice. And I said, no, I do. I want to change. And I wanted to admit, out of myself when I'm
mm,
angry.
mm,
I'm the person inside. I just out of pain, and it comes out with anger. It's really my pain. but my reaction was anger. So I learned, I a lot of healing process with child healing work.
Mm,
And I, really was life changing.
mm,
And that is that I specialize in right now with my clients because I know how important it is. And, stop people, my parents, for my life, for how things are not working out for me, and practicing love, acceptance, forgiveness, and
mm,
compassion to free my heart from
mm,
this, pain, this terror, from this, darkness.
mm,
Those were the starting points of my
mm,
transformation.
mm,
Really, the most important was accepting that I'm angry. It's my anger and I have to fix it. Like,
mm.
I have to face it.
Not
I do.
necessarily, absolutely. Fix is such a word. You could be very much a man in that regard, or a very simplified version of a human to say, no, okay, there's a problem, I fix it. Yeah, good luck that. The fixing that does it actually, but you can't fix it with a quick fix. There is always a long, long healing associated with it. And I think that is so beautiful because what you have touched, you said three words there, that each word would have been a year of work in the sense of the forgiveness. You can't just say, okay, I forgive everyone. It doesn't work like that. Um, the radical compassion. Now, that takes time to actually look into the mirror, strip yourself naked, look in there, see everything that you hate, and then say, I love you to yourself. No, yeah, I dare to do that. I dare you to, and then truly mean it and then live by it. Uh, that takes time. All
Yes.
that, the self-love, the self-compassion, the to still in your life and actually reflect what is really happening. That is really, really hard. If we are not able to do it, you can read all the self-help books that there are out there, but you need to talk to someone who can listen to what you say and listen to what you don't say. Did the role of you exposing yourself to others, i.e., to at least counseling, to seek help, to do inner child work with someone else, was that a big role in your breakthroughs?
Yes, absolutely. Because one of the biggest things was, I figured it out alone.
Mm,
I don't trust anybody. I was taught, don't trust anybody,
exactly.
you know, what you need to do for yourself. Like, where like I'm so trapped. And so that was something that I also had to terms with, I everything. And so it's okay to look for help. And my initial was, through books,
Mm,
through just reading a lot of information on how to heal, and
mm,
before I stepped out and really got help with from people.
yeah.
So big trap for people with trauma is, they trust. So in order for us to, even step to reach out to a therapist or a coach or someone who can help guide you, that's a big
Mm,
thing to let go of, you
absolutely.
know, is guide you. And that involves trust. Um, so it's easy. All these things that I'm speaking about took time
Mm,
and took years. And you kind of have through each process because, there's that happens and you grow
mm,
and you kind of have to in it before you can heal the next
yeah.
part.
Yeah.
Because guess what? The
Yeah.
subconscious mind, we're just not ready for greatness way.
Mm,
We even if it's there, we're not be able to sustain it because it's unfamiliar yet. That's
mm.
why each growth, piece have its, stability.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And that we can come to the topic of gratitude Because so often are we perfectionists and we've only focused on that one thing in the day that was absolutely did not work out. And you're focusing and ruminating and thinking about it. When in reality, so many things, so many small decisions you made were all laying the foundation for you to be great. But we don't recognize them as what they are, putting down the pebbles that then create a solid foundation for you to grow. So, did you? I know already the answer, but I want you to spell it out. Did you ever celebrate your wins when you were younger? Did you ever acknowledge, wow, I did well there?
When I was younger,
Mhm.
oh no, no, that was something like that wasn't even a part of my, thought
Exactly.
process. Parents
Exactly.
never to be, it was criticized. So how could it's you know how to do things if you're not taught or exposed to them,
Yeah.
So
Take it.
definitely.
Oh, goodness, I recognize you. I feel every fiber of you because I that shadow for such a long time as well. And unfortunately, I probably, when you said the trauma can also that your parents are very successful and that you always think that you have to live up to that, maybe me being a perfectionist and trying to push myself all the time, maybe that was a significant part of trauma that I handed down to my gorgeous young men, who now have to live with the consequences of my successes, my failures, my weaknesses, my the whole, and that's so hard. You try to do your best, and it turns out that inevitably it's not your best. Well, I can guarantee you that. I have yet to meet a father who says, "Yeah, I did a good job." That's
Mhm.
impossible. Um,
Yeah.
the question, where do we go from there, and which steps do we take? So here you were, you recognized something needed to change. You recognized, you took ownership of your own emotions, and that was wow, your feelings. So what steps are there that one can actually take? To seek
Yeah.
help with someone? Absolutely, because that instead of you reinventing the wheel, you actually figure out, okay, what can I do? But if we want to break it down into measurable steps, maybe smart goals that we want to implement, what are sort of the low-hanging fruit? Because a lot of people in this interview will have thought, okay, yep, I myself there.
Mhm. Yes, like I shared, it was hard to trust anybody.
Mm,
Um, and so I did was, and this is just from my personal experiences, I held on to something that was working. Like if I
mm,
was practicing reading affirmations and I was following a certain specific teacher or a
mm,
therapist, I would just practice and follow that one person where I
yes.
felt comfortable, and was working for me. Like find something that works for you and find a person that
Mm,
is what you. So
mm,
I think that's very important, because everything's not work for everybody.
mm,
We're on different levels, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So find one thing that works for you
mm,
and just do it and let that start to lead you.
mm,
And one of the most important turning points for me, really learning to trust my intuition,
mm,
really learning to be, you know, guided part of me that knows what's good for me,
mm. Beautiful.
listening to, okay, if I'm to practice gratitude, for example,
Mm,
which I mean, should every human being practices, but find one thing, if I'm to practicing gratitude and it gives me a sense of peace for the
mm,
moment and it
mm,
brings me to
mm,
center, it me a sort of relief,
mm,
then I'm going to practice gratitude all day long, and that will lead me to the person or the therapist or the coach or the mentor that I need to learn from, that I
mm,
need to,
mm,
um, you know, that's how I was led on my journey too.
mm.
It wasn't like, um, you know, and it was so subtly. It's when you allow,
Exactly.
they guide you, but you also have to be in alignment with that,
Yeah.
right? Meaning, well, how do you know what's right or in what's wrong? I always say, well, you ask the question and then you wait.
Correct.
if you get an answer and get a feeling of peace and you know your answer, then trust it and go with it.
Mm.
But if you ask yourself a question and
Mm.
you're feeling uneasy,
Mm.
you're like, I don't know, you're unsure, it's just
Mm.
not, then it's a no. And
I
so
hear
if
you.
you just practice that alone, that will lead you to the person that you need to work with.
Mm. I absolutely. And gratitude is certainly something that helped me a lot. I have come to understand that there are bigger things out there. I still don't believe in a God, but I certainly know that there are forces at play that we barely understand, and maybe we'll never understand, but they're still playing either with us, or we can harness them. We can actually open up to the universe and say, okay, ask questions. The questions, we have got the power to choose the right question. If we ask why has happened to me? Why always me? And you get the answers because the universe, your subconscious, whoever is feeding you the answer because you've asked it. Okay, why me? I give you 20 reasons why you. If a different question, a how question, or who, in the sense of who do I want to become? How can I be a different version? How can I be that version that I really aspire to? So it's completely, you have got the power to ask those questions. And in reality, we ask those questions all the time. We are just not aware of it. 60 to
Mhm.
80,000 thoughts a day, of which
Mhm.
80% are negative, because it wants to keep us safe. We have, as human mankind, we've evolved because we looked out for the tiger that is about to eat us. We are not smelling the flowers and say, oh, this flower is nice. We're constantly looking for the threat, yet we are in a field of flowers. And that is the difference. It's our perception, it's our thoughts. And the moment you become aware of that, you can actually alter that. And I think it's that active, to take an active role in preparing yourself to see the flowers. Still be aware of any tigers, because if you don't see the tiger, you're dead. But that's fair. But don't just focus only on tigers, but also say, wow,
Mhm.
what a beautiful field. And at the moment, I don't see a tiger. Okay, what a field of flowers. Is
That's
that a
right.
fair to live? Is you have taken on for yourself? Or have you
Yes.
worked further? How can we expand from that?
Yeah. Well, gratitude, everything, Um, we're listing things that, are good and it's meaning. It's a sense of fulfillment.
Yeah,
Focus of focusing our mind on what works, what in our life, rather
yeah.
than living in lack of what we don't have in the moment.
Mm.
That's why gratitude is so powerful. It's to a place of, I have so much. I already have so much. It's when we live in thinking about the things we don't have,
Mm.
the things we want, the things we missed, we're
Mm.
lack of. It's a separation from
Mm.
our truth,
Mm.
from our heart, from our peace.
Mm.
You saved my life
Mm.
because we about positive thinking, but positive is gratitude. You're
Mm.
thinking about all the things that are good
Mm.
in your life and all the things that you want in the future
Mm.
in your life. So we're living, the goal is to keep ourselves tuned in
Mm.
all the time, tuned into our heart, to our spirit, and if the people practice, the God, in
Mm.
connection with God, staying close to God, that's what us at peace.
Mm.
And it's the moment when we disconnect from that state, we are lost. We're confused. We don't know what to do with ourselves.
Mm.
We are anxious and worried about, what's in our life. It disconnected from your truth. So, when this concept and we actually practice it all day, every day, staying. Let me just focus on the good that's happening from this situation right now.
Yeah.
Even when you're in the darkness, that releases all, that's trying to attack us. We're staying and strong in ourselves.
Love that. I absolutely love that. And that we are coming back here in a circle to self-compassion, to actually accept that those fears that are welling up in you, that they are part of you. The negative emotions that are there, they are part of you. You can be either extremely angry about them and feel shame and guilt about them. It doesn't change that original feeling. The feeling is still there. It's still part of you. And we have got the power to do some of the work that you have just been describing, this emotional work, the inner child work, etc., to understand why these feelings are present, where these supposed warning signals, I guess, are coming from, because these are all messengers from your past. These are messengers to keep you safe in whatever warped way that made sense for that traumatized child, for that young person who was struggling. So it's all part of you. And I think, was the biggest thing I learned when it came to self-compassion, that I accepted who I truly was and allowed that person to be, and said, hey, it's okay. I understand
Mm.
where your current of neurotransmitters and neurochemicals that are washing over your brain, where that is coming from. But every wave comes and goes. It's the same with neurochemicals. It's the same with the way you think. Allow that stinking thinking for a moment and just accept it for what it is. But maybe you can learn ways how to interrupt an anxiety attack. Maybe you can learn very practical ways. The breath work, the stretching, the trauma focused yoga. There are so many beautiful ways, tapping. There are many ways that you can interrupt and change your physical state, that it is a shame that not many more people are learning about it, because it's very hard. If you master the technique and then apply it to a state of depression or anxiety, you often enough end up laughing or smiling, because you there's darkness and you just switched on the light, and it's just such a powerful, beautiful feeling, isn't it?
It
Are
is.
there that are to your heart? What do you do
Yeah.
when you are in a very anxious state suddenly, or when you're in a very low state?
Hmm. Yeah. Gratitude is my go-to.
Mm,
That always me, to takes it and releases any emotions
mm,
are, in alignment with
mm,
being grateful,
mm,
so my two. Another big is reframing my thoughts.
mm,
If anxious or worried about something, I'll say, what am I thinking about? Oh, I'm thinking about how that is not going to work out, how that interview or appointment is not going to work out. And I'm stressing out about it, but it's
mm.
not even happening right now. It's how I'm looking at it.
Yep.
So let me just reframe that for myself. And, I can either, first of all, reframe it and into a different language, like say it differently. Like instead of not going to work out, of course it's going to work out. And if it doesn't, it's going to lead me to somewhere greater, you know. Powerful too. And that also releases any type of fear or anxiety or worry when we reframe the sentence.
Mm,
We turn the words around.
mm.
Instead of that's not going to work out, that will work out. It's just changing the words.
Yeah.
So that's a very powerful one. I like to exercise.
Mm,
So exercise gives me a break from my mind, which is, that is very, very, very has
mm,
worked for me
mm,
for for forever. But the three, I would say gratitude, number one, it's the easiest. We always have something to be grateful for in the
mm,
moment,
mm,
no matter where we are. We can see, We have legs, we have hands, we have fingers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the basics, but you know what? Without that, we'll be worried about not having that, you know? So to just, stay as much as we can. Gratitude, reframing your thoughts, changing it around in your mind, looking at the negative situation in a positive light.
Mm.
That's, and some physical movement. I believe that physical movement is important, and just a walk
Mm.
or a stretch, you
Absolutely.
know. Yeah.
No, you're beautiful because we have that power. You can choose to either wallow in your pain and wallow in the role of a victim, or you can take small but consistent steps, and you need to figure out what are the most effective steps. Because essentially, you're standing in of a 360-degree circle. You could go any of these degrees, and some of them paths are more effective than others. You were saying the power of exercise, which is so beautiful. I mean, the power of you moving your muscles. We understand so much that issues lie in the tissues. We understand that the fascia around the muscles actually have got a far stronger role to play in our physical well-being than previously be given them credit for. We know that the muscles in their own right are a huge endocrine organ, that metabolic organ, with a huge dump for the glucose. So if you have got a rubbish diet with lots of high sugar content, you have got a yo-yo effect constantly from, I feel too, I feel low, depending on where your blood sugar levels are in response to the insulin that is being poked out. Well, with you actually stabilizing that, suddenly the anxiety attacks, I guess, will be surprisingly better. Or your constant instability, emotional lability, you flying off the handle one moment and crying the next one. I dare to say, with you changing your nutrition, that will change. So it's all those choices that we have got. So you've got the nutrition, the hydration, the exercise that you were implementing, the gratitude, the, oh, so much we have touched upon. But where the hell do you start? It's just there's so much.
Sure. But
No,
I know, I know.
let's first January. Let's start everything.
Yes, but that's everybody start where they are, what's comfortable for them.
Yeah.
I'm in a rehab and I teach groups, I facilitate groups, and I always say I give a lot of tools, but you have to choose one that
Mm.
stands out for you the most. Like, what are you actually going to do?
Yeah.
Like, what's for you? Choose one. Because if you're doing everything, you're going to get burnt out. You
Mm.
know, it's breathing exercises for you. Whether it's, okay, I'm going to take a look at my nutrition. I'm going to take a look at
Mm.
my physical activity.
Mm.
Start feels good for you right now. And don't worry about getting all the other things done. That'll come.
Yeah.
It has to, it's just important to take the first step.
I love
First,
that.
me, it was I need to change my mind so that I can like function in life. That one
Absolutely.
was, so on that day in, day out, and you have to be consistent. If that's the right.
Mm.
If you're
Mm.
not consistent, nothing's gonna work. Like you can't sitting here and saying, "Oh, I want this, that," and anything about it. You
Absolutely.
you have to make time to
Mm.
invest in yourself. So to narrow it down, you know, find for what are you willing to do? What are
Mm.
you willing to start with?
Mm.
As simple as I'm just going to focus on saying 5 affirmations, about my life. That's what I'm comfortable doing. What am I able to do?
I like that.
That's
Take it small, tiny baby steps. And I love that because that then breeds consistency. So tiny baby steps, but not just one baby step. Today I eat an extra salad leaf, and then tomorrow you do the baby step of maybe I walk times, I don't know, around the block. And then the next day I finally do something on emotions. You can't do that. I love the consistency component. Make a commitment to something. So if you choose from now on, I eat more greens, then make sure that every day you do it. a salad leaf. Just one salad leaf, that's all. That's fine. That's all I want you to do. But
Yeah.
keep that. And chances are you will do a bit more as time goes by, but focus every day on something green on your plate. If you do the same thing
Right.
with a relationship, I mean, that's bank account. If you were now to actually start on your, that might be on shaky grounds. If every day from now on you spend only 5 minutes, but never less, never more, 5 minutes every day on your relationship. One day you make him, her a cup of coffee. The next day you leave a note or send a text randomly to say, hey, I love you, I'm thinking about you, and I hope you've got a great day. Next day you put maybe a flower on the table or cook something. Can you imagine after a week that your relationship is changing? And after a month, can you imagine that that relationship would have gone to a new level? Yet you've only spent
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Mhm.
15 minutes a day is 1% of your day. You tell me that you
Oh,
can't actually spend 0.3% of your day on a relationship or 0.3% of your day on yourself. There you
mhm.
go. So
Yeah.
I love what you've just said because I find that so powerful. It's so powerful, it actually gives me goosebumps here right now. I've got a physical and emotional, a physical response to my emotions because I know how important they were for me to survive and to become a so much better person. Because it's so easy to be overwhelmed. It's so easy to
Mhm.
fall back in old patterns because for after all, maybe 20, 30, 40 years, these old patterns ruled your life. So therefore, be aware how powerful they are and how easy your mind can slip back into them.
That's
So,
right.
and self-love, isn't it? Do you sometimes find yourself going back?
Sometimes it take me back, you know, because we do a lot of trauma healing work.
Mm,
It's going to be dormant. So it
mm,
can get activated and re-triggered at
mm.
any moment. But it's
Love it.
up to us, we be prepared,
Mm,
equipped with the tools, with the coping
mm,
mechanisms,
mm,
not to it's becoming alive. It's coming back to life again, you
mm,
know. It's up to us to stop it. So I've trained myself over the years that to be with you, it's very hard for me to go back and even think, imagine how I used to feel. And it was very dark.
mm,
I was in a very, very fearful place at a time in my life where I never imagined that there would be a way out.
mm,
Something that, you know, like earlier, like what can do? You know, try something different.
mm,
If something that resonates, reach out,
mm,
give you opportunity.
mm.
You go back to what you were doing. You don't have to change. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? But give
yeah,
yourself an opportunity
yeah,
and know that there is
yeah.
way out, 100%. But you got to start with the baby steps and
Mm,
just practice what you can today.
mm,
Don't worry about like, oh, but not enough. Well, you're going to get to the next step when you're ready for it.
mm.
And if you got that route, will you there, and wow, there's so much I want to I want to say, there's just like
And that's passion shines. You are such a beautiful woman when it comes to opening and talk about the darkness and that this theme permeates through your story. But right now, you are the light. And because you have seen the darkness, therefore, you know how powerful even a small candle can be in the light, the candle of hope. And you have been able to learn techniques that assure that that candle is not get blown out, but in fact, you are lighting up a torch, you're lighting up a light tower ultimately. I mean, it's beautiful how you focused on the light and you worked on it. And I think your life to all of us, what we can do. Small steps, focus on one thing at a time, one choice at a time. But don't just bob around like a cork on the ocean driven by currents and winds, but instead actually say, okay, this is baseline, this is where I am. It's a complete cluster beep of a life. Okay, what can I actually do? Am I
Mhm.
really this powerless? Am I really this hopeless? Because your mind will tell you and try to tell you how body you are, that you are fat, that no one loves you, that you will never find love again, that you a pauper. All these things, these are fears, and they come from somewhere. And let's just accept them for what they are, that they're fears, but they're nothing close to the truth. They are
No.
just random thoughts, so to speak, that your subconscious is playing to you. But there is an infinite number of different endings compared with the catastrophizing that you at the moment are experiencing as a truth, that you perceive that is what for 100% sure will happen. I guarantee you it will not in 99%. So
Yeah.
how can we focus? And I think this is the very quick answer to that. But you and I have been touching upon so many beautiful, beautiful little here and there. And if we combine them towards more one congruent path, however meandering that path is, because healing comes in layers, as you so wisely said, and you will start healing some aspect of your life, and that will lay a little bit of the foundation. Then you do another aspect of your life, etc. And suddenly, after a while, you are a very different human being. And I'm excited for you guys out there. Anyone who is listening, this is beautiful.
Yes, yes, it's super important, powerful,
Mm,
and it the most important thing is to give people hope, you
mm,
know,
exactly.
know that it is possible. It
Mm,
really is possible for change and for a better life.
mm,
Like one step at a time will lead you, open you up to things.
mm,
I mean, I never imagined. I thought it was a joke when I got a call from hypnotherapy school. That was something that I thought only, strange people would do something like that. But that was exactly what I was being prepared for because, you know, I was affirmations by then. I was
mm,
practicing, changing and journaling and reframing. I was, trusting at the time. Well, if you ask, it'll bring different situations that you could never have imagined, but you have to go try it,
exactly.
and try it. So I tried it and I even like giggled and when they came, I'm like, what? That's funny. Like that's never worked for anybody because remember my trust
Ah,
issues,
ha,
my
ha,
belief
ha.
so close. Like it wasn't at all with my thinking
Yeah,
or, taking
yeah,
risks.
yeah.
But it was the exact thing that I needed to do in this
Mm.
lifetime. That was my purpose.
I love
And
it.
so when I went to the school, I after the first, and they gave me a first month free because I was so skeptical about it. They're like, you know what? You can start the school with no obligation. And, if you have to stay, you can just stay. After the first class, I was like, oh my God, this is
Mm,
a people,
yeah,
this is what I need to understand. So that's what I mean by taking one step at a time. It will lead you to open doors where you could never
yeah.
be, and me volunteering at rehab at a treatment center.
Mm,
And very shortly after that, I got a full-time job working at Passages Malibu Treatment Center. And I worked there for 10 years
beautiful,
as a hypnotherapist.
beautiful, beautiful.
You know, just one step at a time, one practice at a time.
Leanna, you're an amazing woman. Oh, thank you so much for sharing all those deep insights and providing that beacon of hope, really showing us that life, that yesterday is gone, that the past does not equal the future. We sort of believe that will ever change. Yet we can change just not everything at the same time, but by taking stepwise approach, you will change so much more than you can ever believe to be true. Leanna, if people want to know more about you, where can they find you?
They can find me through my website. It's just my first and last name, leannalapidus.com.
Mm,
And I'm on Instagram,
mm.
best way to reach me is through my website,
Yeah.
contact form, and we'll set up a time to chat. I offer actually free consultations.
Mm,
So if anybody has any questions, I would be so, so happy to
brilliant.
meet with anybody who's watching.
Brilliant. Guys, look down there into the description of the YouTube video and of the podcast. Leanna's details are down there. Again, thank you so much for making today a really good day for me, because you have opened my horizon to something new, to a topic that I thought I had dealt with in my own life as well as had known a lot about. Yet there is always more I can learn. And for that, I'm so grateful to you. Talking about gratitude here, I'm so grateful to you because you my day a better day, and I hope that applies for so many of us out there. You guys out there, thank you so much for tuning in, and press the like and subscribe button, and I see you next time. Look after yourself.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up.